treasure. That is what she was really looking for. A treasure to send her mother. She was away at college, and she knew that her mother's birthday was coming up, and she thought that she would like to get her mother one of her favorite things, and that was a plate from people who were afar away. Her mother loved getting plates from people who had traveled. Well, she had found out that there was going to be an estate sale of a missionary woman who had passed away, so she went to take a look at the different offerings that they were going to have. As she wandered around, she was hoping that she might find a plate or two that the woman had acquired while on her missions field. Well, she came across these various things, and then she saw an old trunk that was filled with old clothes. It reminded her of her grandmother. So she went over to them and started pulling them out, investigating to see what the style was, etc., etc. When she got to a dress and she started to pull it out, she noticed that the belt of the dress was caught in a board of the trunk at the bottom of the trunk. She took a look, and underneath the trunk, the belt didn't show through. So after she got all the rest of the clothes out, she checked around and pulled on this belt and noticed that it was stuck, and it pulled up one of the boards on the bottom of the trunk. Further investigation she discovered that the board was part of a false bottom. And when she opened up the false bottom, there was a beautiful plate with an oriental design. Well, she started to investigate and checking the plate out. And she took her pad out and took some notes as to the design and the markings on the back of the plate. Then she placed the plate back in the trunk where she had found it, put the clothes back inside, and left. That evening, she checked the internet for those type of plates, and she found some that were almost exactly like the one that she had found. She made comparisons, and she knew that that plate was now valuable. Then she ran a search on the missionary woman and her husband, and sure enough, their mission field was in China, where these plates seemed to have been made, and they lived there for many years. She decided that she wanted to buy the plate, but she would have to buy the trunk. So she thought, how? She didn't have much money being a student, so she decided that the best way she could do it was sell everything she had, which she did. She sold her bedding, her bed, her dresser, her computer, her iPod, even down she sold her cell phone. Then, with all the money she had, she figured she'd have a good chance of buying the trunk. But to be sure, she wanted to have extra money. So she went out and borrowed all the money she could from her friends. The next day when the auction came up, she was restless in her seat, waiting for the trunk to come up for bid. And it finally did, and when it did, she proceeded to put in the first bid. And of course, she bid low. Much to her surprise, there were other people who were also bidding for this trunk. She got a little afraid and just kept bidding and bidding and bidding. Eventually, she came to the end of her funds. When it got to this point, she noticed that the only other bidder that was going against her was a company that bought old clothes and used them for plays and renting out. So she got an idea and decided to go for it. So she proceeded to bid and bid and bid, and they in turn bidded, but finally she did win the bid and did get the trunk full of clothes. After she had paid for that, she went over to the people who were bidding against her and struck a deal, which was that they would buy the clothes from her, and she made actually a couple $100, but paid back also all the money that she had borrowed from her friends. But she got to keep the trunk. After getting the trunk home, she opened it up and examined the plate more thoroughly and decided that the best place to get it appraised was at the big city museum a ways away. And she called them up. After getting some basic information on the plate, they gladly gave her an appointment with their expert. When he examined the plate, he indeed said that it was of value, quite a bit of value. In fact, because the artist and the manufacturing of the plate was of the quality it was in the time period it was, the museum itself could not even afford to buy it from her. But they did offer to display it and hold it for her in safekeeping until she decided what to do with it. Armed with this knowledge and smiling greatly, she then went out and bought her mother a plate from the souvenir shop and sent that for her birthday gift. And thus it was so.